Hey everyone, really quickly, I'm going to walk through all of the code that we are going to write in the day one for the 7 days of AI engineering course. Um, and this is just for anyone who prefers kind of like video audio versus the written format. This isn't going to be quite a step-by-step. It's going to be an overview. As you can see, we've got all of the code already written here, but I'm just going to run through what each kind of line by line, what we're doing here. And so the first bit is just importing some of our packages. We've got logging, we've got OS, and then we've got this Telegram package and the Telegram extension package. Telegram is kind of like the base API, and then Telegram extension is gives you a lot of kind of more abstracted primitives to work with. So you're getting more faster with less configuration. And then last but certainly not least, we've got the OpenAI package. And so the first thing that we do is we pull in our OpenAI API key. If you don't have one of those, you're going to go to platform.openai.com and you're going to go over here and you're going to manage your account. And from here, you want to go, let me see if I can make this a bit bigger. Beautiful. And here, what you'll want to do is move over to the billing tab. On the billing tab, if you don't have a paid account, you'll want to create a paid account. You'll just need to plug in a card. And then just as a useful kind of aside here, you will want to set up your usage limits. So to activate the paid account is just the payment methods. And once the payment methods are done, you want to put in usage limits to make sure you don't get absolutely blown up should your key leak and somebody rack up a bunch of charges. Maybe you leave something very computationally expensive overnight. Whatever it is, make sure that you set limits that you're okay with waking up tomorrow and seeing your account hit with these usages. And once you have that, you will get all of your API keys. And you can see here, we've got a list of them. So you'll just generate a new secret key, and then you will plug it into Replit, just like we did in the original tutorial. So over here, what you'll want to do is create. So let's see if I can see it. Yeah, you'll go over to secrets, and you'll want to name it the OpenAI API key, and then you'll plug in the value there. And then we've got another environment variable called tg_bot_token. This is our Telegram API key, essentially. And there's a link in the email, but you will want to create a little chat in Telegram with the bot father. The bot father, if you start a conversation with him, will give you a bunch of commands to spin up a new bot. And so for that, you can just create new bot as / and then it will ask you to name it. You'll go through this entire process, and at the end, you will get an API key, and you will plug in that API key. The same right here. You'll just name it tg_bot_token up top, and then you'll put that API key down at the bottom. So you have these two environment variables set up. And with that, that's all of the kind of like non-coding related things that you need to set up in order to actually get going. And from here, you could see the next thing that we have. We'll go ahead and pull this up as well. We'll just say, hey, here's our Telegram and our OpenAI API keys. Ooh, let's see. That's not what I want to do. I want to put it there. Beautiful. Okay. And the next thing is we've got this messages variable. This is a global variable that we will be using to keep kind of a running history of what our chat is. And so you can see at the beginning, we've got, hey, here's the role, it's system, and then content is the content of the message. You can say, hey, we're telling the system or the model that you are a helpful assistant that answers questions. This is just kind of the very base prompt, very base model that you're interacting with. If you wanted something a little bit more tailored for a specific use case where, like, for example, all of your users are, for example, software engineers, and you only expect them to be answering engineering questions, you could prompt it by, adding some sort of software engineering specific content with the role of system here. And then on the next line, we've got this basic config. This is just a bit of logging to make sure that if any errors happen in our application, that we'll be able to see it. You can see this little bit where it says application started is because of this logging right here. And so if we look, we're going to skip both of these for the time being, and we can go over here to this little block of code where we see, hey, This is essentially a conditional that says, hey, if we're in the main function or main.py, then run this code. And because we can expect this code to run every single time. But the first thing is we take this application. You can think of this as the bot. You can see we build a new application, and then we add a token where we have this Telegram bot token up here, and then we're going to build it. And so this is our base kind of bot that we use to interact with everything. And then from here, we create a start handler and a chat handler. The start handler is a command handler, which means all of the kind of slash commands that you use when, like, for example, over here with the bot father, you can see we use this command /newbot. That is a command handler. The bot father has a command handler that says /newbot, and whenever it sees /newbot command run, it runs some function. Here you can see we've got our function as start. And what start does is it takes an update and it takes a context. An update you can kind of think as the Telegram information, like who is messaging them, what the contents of that information is, things like that. And then the context is things kind of on the bot side of things. Like, hey, if you want the bot to do something, you'll see, like, for example, here we say context.bot.send message. So here is the bot doing some message. And you can see for the chat ID, it uses the update where it says, hey, the effective chat ID. So it wants to make sure that it's replying to the user that sent the command. If it did something else, that'd be a little bit funky now, wouldn't it? And you can see that, so that's what update does, is just that. And you can see that whenever the command receives the start, that it will call this start. And so it sends, hey, whoever sent it, their chat ID, that's going to be the chat ID that we send the message to. And the text is just going to be, I'm a bot, please talk to me. So anytime somebody uses the /start command, the bot is going to reply, I'm a bot, please talk to me. Very basic, back and forth. The other portion is the chat handler. And you can see instead of a command handler like we have here, we actually use a message handler. And a message handler kind of takes any message. So you can think of this as a message where it's just straight text. It is not a command where you kind of have that prefix of the / before something. This is just any message. And so we apply a couple filters here where we filter, say like, hey, we want the filter to be catching some amount of text, and we want to make sure that the text that we're getting is not a command. That's kind of how you can think of this. So if the filter has text and the chat that's coming in is not a command, then we want to execute the chat function. And now we can get into the kind of like OpenAI portion of it, where the chat function, just like the start function, takes an update and it takes some context. And the very first thing that we do in the function is we append a new object to our messages array. So you can see messages is an array of objects where each object has a role key and a content key. And so the very first thing is we append a role key of user. Role is an enum that is either user, it is system, or you'll see a little bit later down in this function, it's an assistant. Those are the three strings that OpenAI expects for the role key. And so we're saying, hey, in this case, the user is sending something to the message, and what content are they sending us? This is where we can use the update to get the message of the text. So if I said, hey, what's the circumference of the Earth? And I put it in here, you would see that, hey, cool, whatever I put in there would be available at the update.message.text value. Okay, and once we have appended that, so now our messages has kind of two objects in the array where the system is saying like, hey, you're a helpful assistant that answers questions. And then the next thing is a user saying like, hey, I have a question. We are going to pass that to the OpenAI chat completion create function. And that takes a model. So you can look up on the OpenAI documentation a list of all of the different models that you can use chat completion with. For example, you could also, if you have the beta, you have access to GPT-4 instead of the 3.5 Turbo. And then it also takes a messages argument, in which case we are just passing it this array here. And then cool. that is going to be whatever the function returns is going to be a large completion object. And we aren't doing anything crazy with this object other than we want to kind of pull out the answer. And so the answer for this large completion object, we can find at completion, choices, at the 0 index, the message, and then the content. So we just call that completion answer for easy reference because we will need to use this multiple times. And so the next thing that we want to do is we want to append to our messages array the answer that we just got for context. So you can kind of see how we're layering this object by object, where we have the system, then we have the user, then we have the assistant. And then from there, you'll see it'll just, as you chat back and forth, it'll be user and then assistant and then user and then assistant with a kind of memory of sorts happening as this messages variable just gets larger and larger and larger and has more and more context into the conversation. And so we append the assistant and we append the completion answer, whatever the AI responded with. We just want to make sure that it's logged up here in messages so that we can reference it in the conversation. And then we will have the bot send the message where the chat ID is, again, whoever sent the chat to us. And then the text is going to be the completion answer. So again, the completion answer right here, whatever we got back from the AI. And so you can see that's the start handler, and the chat handler will execute the start function and the chat function. And so these are the handlers that are kind of equipped to it. But right now they are separate. You can notice that we don't call the application anywhere in here. So the actual bot doesn't quite know what's going on yet. So we have to use this add handler function to our application so that it can actually, hey, it knows that the start and chat handlers are meant for it to be picking up on. And then we just run polling, which will send it into a continuous state where it will run until you stop it. And from there, you can see if we were to go and we open up the bot, you can see here that, hey, we'll go ahead and clear it because this is no longer running. So we can go over here. We'll clear the previous chat that we had. So we'll just clear the chat history because every single time we stop or start it, this is going to run from the very top again. And so our messages is going to be reset. So you're only going to have context on as long as it's been running. So anytime you kind of want to start asking a new line of questioning, you'll need to stop and then restart it. I will leave it as an exercise to y'all how you could create a reset command handler that would reset the messages so you wouldn't have to stop and restart it. You could just call a /reset command and have the messaging kind of memory reset itself to default. But I'll leave that as an exercise to you. For the time being, we can just see like, hey, can you write a for loop that passes the fizz buzz test? That seems fairly straightforward. Hey, it's a classic computer science question. I think the AI will be able to handle that just fine. So right now, you can see nothing's really happening. And this is the latency. And so we were just waiting for OpenAI to finish the message. And here we've got a fizzbuzz command. And we can continue iterating on this. So I could say, can you turn this into a React component, for example? Turn this into a React component that has a button that prints out the fizzbuzz test. And so you can see I'm using kind of like an antecedent, like I've got this. And so it only knows from the context of the previous input and question that we had what this could be turned into. So if you just from the very first question said, hey, can you turn this into a React component? It would be a little bit confused to be like, hey, what are you talking about? I don't understand. But since it has all of the memory right here, we've got a semi-functioning chat logic here. Oh, and here is a beautiful, let's see, you can actually see that we got an error back in our logging over here. And so we can see that our error message was that model is currently overloaded with other requests. Okay, so that's kind of crazy. So we know that we got an error back. And so we'll just ask it again and say, because we should still have all of the messages right here. Our chat is still running. So we'll see how long this takes to respond again. Cool. And here you can see we've got a JSX kind of syntax here. We've got some use state. We've got this fizzbuzz function that returns, it looks like a list of items for the fizzbuzz. Cool. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. And so you can kind of see step by step what we got with just 46 lines of Python code and 2 API keys and a little Telegram bot. I hope this was a fun exercise, and we will see you in day 2.